So with us we have Cristiano Nobrega, President of IAB Brazil, Ana Henana, Regional Senior Marketing Director from PepsiCo, and we also have Marcia Esteves, Co-President of Grey Brazil. Welcome.
Welcome. So can I use this because I don't have the microphone? Okay. No, you keep that. Hello? Yes? Okay, just. Well, I'm happy to see you because they said you were lost, so finally you are here.
They were the unreachables.
Yes, they were. And we had a good conversation about the challenges we have on measurement tools. And it's also very interesting to see people from different industries together to talk a little bit. So let's start with the first. What are the current greatest challenges in your market about measurement tools right now?
So from an agent's perspective, I think we have a lot of tools and in a daily basis we are growing in offers in terms of tools, but we still don't see a cross-media tool that we can see online, offline, everything mixed together, mobile, shopper. So we end up with a lot of tools and hard to get the right information, right reports, and the best way to deliver business results, because in the end of the day, the tool should be connected to business results. So I think this is still a big challenge for all of us.
I think from a brand point of view, for me, the biggest challenge is I think we are too focused on the shining objects, and we have forgotten about the basics of measurement for media. So we need to really understand the basics, which is what is our reach? Are we reaching the right target? Are we reaching the target in the right context? And the rest of the data that we have is helping to diagnose if the content is working, if the media is working. But in truth, we need to first cover the basics, and I think we have been too focused on the shining objects so that we have lost sight of the basic measurements that we need to get in place and that we need to get in place across platforms to make sure that we truly measure what we're getting and understand the impact to the business.
Okay.
Okay. About the industry perspective, we think that to measure comparable things would be the most challenging thing right now. We've been discussing a lot that in IAB in Brazil, especially in the Committee of Metrics. And the point is that the digital market has been too much focused on performance metrics, and which are great. I mean, that's very important. But in terms of having exactly this perspective throughout different media types, cross campaigns, cross media campaigns, that is a challenging. And for that, we should focus on audience-based metrics. Which means that we are pretty much focused on GRP solutions and in a way that you better understand the audience and put focus on the audience instead of just impressions or the duration of a video. Indeed, the Media Rating Council, the MRC, has been just released a document exactly bringing to the light these terms that will be essentials for understanding the media and the measurement across different media types. And that is, for instance, let's say, the exactly audience that is being targeted, the valid traffic, the viewable impressions, the viewable video duration, and all these terms, all these concepts should be better understanding for the whole industry to exactly build the best measurement across media. I think that's the most important right now in terms of the industry in general.
Before you move on, would you say that those challenges that you have in Brazil are the same across all Latam?
I'd say that this is quite a challenge for the whole industry in the whole markets, definitely. We've been discussing with different AIBs in different countries, so the subject is not quite different from each country that we've been developing these debates. So yeah, definitely it is.
Okay, and let's go back to Marcia, an advertising agency. Based on your experience, do you have the right data for your industry needs, for your client needs?
I think that the question should be, are we using the right data? Because data is everywhere, and we are pretty much overwhelmed with data, but we don't use it in the right way. We don't do the right questions. We are always trying to report what has been done already. We don't see, so it's always late. Seems that we are always late producing and producing reports that normally nobody sees. So at the end of the day, we should be able to use data in a proper way to find opportunities, to find a different way to do things in real time, not a month later or a week later even. So data, I'm pretty sure we all have data. We still need to find a better way to use it.
You know, it's interesting because I am also a college professor. I have just a media class during the evening at the university, and I talk to my students about data, and they don't even go and see the census data that is, you know, is there, it's available for anyone. People don't have the time, and they go to a company and start working on reports, and sometimes they don't really connect the dots between data and reports, and then you are losing a lot of valuable information for your efforts and for your analysis, of course.
Sometimes we are more worried with delivering the report than with the business results that we need to give. So this is the thing. We need to understand the best way to use the data and not produce things to say that we are delivering. And this starts with the right question on what we are looking for. And then we can use the data that is available everywhere.
Anna, you are a client, so on your side, do you have the right data right now?
I would totally agree that the most important part here is to understand what you're looking for, and we rarely have clarity on the questions that we want to answer. If you don't know what you're trying to solve for, then you can lose into lots of data, and everything is inconclusive, or you can go into the wrong conclusions. So first, I think I totally agree is understanding what's the question, what's the business need, what is it that you're trying to solve for, and then understanding then what's the data. But we need to look at data, not only the data that is coming from digital, but what is the data that is coming from the consumer? What is the data that is coming from other sources, and translate that data into insights and intelligence. And that's the second part, I will say, is how you can translate that into something that is useful for the business. I have received reports of thousands of pages that at the end of the day, I don't know what to do with them. Like, what does it mean for me? So what, it's very, very important. Like, what does it mean for my business? How can you translate this point of data or this set of data into something that is actionable and that is actually helping me to solve for the business need that I have?
I will like to ask you, do you have the right people to manage that, kind of reports in your company? Are you helping them, or are you training them to do that?
I think we have the right people. We just have to train internally and externally. It's a change that is not just going to happen at the client side, because we receive a lot of data from our partners, from the agencies, from the platforms. But it's all of us to be very conscious that when we're asking for data as a client, I'm really not asking for data per se. I'm asking for intelligence. And I'm asking for what this data means for me. What do you want me to do with this data once I come back to my desk? And I think that part is not something that we're delivering consistently. And definitely then it gets very messy, it gets very confusing, and things are not moving forward. So the data is there. We have good data and we have bad data. We have to understand where is the good data and the data that we can trust. But then transform that into intelligence, I would say it's key for the client as well as for the partners.
What about the industry?
Yeah, it's all about connecting the right points, the right dots. And for EAB, for instance, we do understand that for that, the point is how to deliver a good education for the market, understand how to do that. So in terms of the strategic agenda, IAB has a large list of different classes and approaches to bring to the market this understanding of how to use the right data, which are the platforms that are available to do that, because indeed the market has a sort of ignorance about which are the offer that you have available on the table to use that and correctly use that. So at the end of the day, the term, the major point for IAB is education, 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 including classes that we run in IAB and also in companies. So that's pretty much our agenda right now, to help the market to understand and to better make the usage of this data and of this reporting available.
I guess that we always have to keep learning, because it's always something new in the market, so you will never stop doing that. What can we learn from today's transparency challenges in the industry as a client, as an agency? What can you tell us?
Yeah, that's a good point, because again, it's a matter of standards, having standards for the market, perhaps ethics, if you will, but mostly education over these standards. So again, if we, as IAB, if we understand that the market is committed to those standards, understand these standards, and indeed IAB in Brazil just presented a manifesto calling on the market and the members to follow those standards as a best practice, to bring them transparency, to bring to the market transparency, and eventually, if the market evolves, understand that should follow those standards, at the end of the day, we will face a more mature market and definitely less gray areas that can bring lack of transparency to the market. So it's like a positive cycle that we should promote to the market doing this sort of efforts. So.
What about the client side?
Transparency is definitely an interesting topic, to say the least. But what I would say in transparency is it's about time. We have been hiding under the cover of this is new, so we don't know, but it has been more than 10 years. So by now we should have a very good clarity of the data and that we can be confident with the data that we're receiving. So I think on transparency, one is we need to come to a conclusion, because we cannot play the card of the new guy anymore. This is old already. It has been a decade. And definitely, I agree with you. I think it's something that the industry needs to come together and say, this is the code of conduct that we're going to follow, and these are the ethics, these are the standards that we're going to use, and truly commit to that. I think I have seen from the client side a strong commitment from many of the biggest advertisers in the world, including PepsiCo, to make this work. And I think with us in the journey, we need to bring along the agencies, we need to bring along the media outlets, the different platforms, because it's about time that we get together and we organize ourselves. This is not new anymore.
What about you, Marcia?
I think that we got into a moment that everyone is trying to blame the other side to find an excuse for the data, or for the report, or because something got wrong. So sometimes it's the agency that did it wrong, or the client side that didn't brief correctly, and at the end of the day, the media platform suffers because they need to find the responses. I think that I fully agree with Cristiano that we should be, first of all, we need to be together. I mean, even though having more than 10 years, every day there is a new thing coming, a new metric, a new platform, and we don't know if it's correct or wrong. All we know that if we sit together and we define standards, as IAB has been doing with all agencies, all clients, all media platforms across Brazil, there are three things that he mentioned, but it works. The first is education. We need to get new professionals ready for the discussion. The second thing is standard. How we are measuring what is good, what is not that good, and because then if we are together, instead of blaming and finding who is wrong, we are going to build a different market, because we're going to be together, we're going to say, okay, this is fraud, this doesn't work. Let's build on the way that it works. And I think that IAB does a really important job for us in Brazil. I'm not saying that because Cristiano is here. I'm just saying because I think that we should have this across the region. We should really sit together. We sit every week in different panels, in different things, all the people in the market discussing what is fraud, what's right and wrong, because sometimes we don't know what is right and wrong. It's just new, and we need to define it. So standards are what we need to make it happen, and things are going to change, and we need to be together to make it, to keep it in the right path.
You know, that based on my experience as a general manager for Arts and Science in Puerto Rico, for me it's a great experience to lead an agency that is a data-driven marketing agency, because I have to teach people how to use the data, how to make it valuable, how you can identify consumer insights that are really important for any campaign to be really effective at the end. And to change the mindset of people is a challenge, because they are used to buy TV as it was 20 years ago, and now you are probably buying a TV with multiple executions for multiple platforms, and you have to real-time measure what is going on so that you can be effective. On the other hand, when I go to the university, I have to change my discussion, my presentation, because I am no longer talking about GRPs only. I have to talk about other devices and platforms, because my students are millennials. So they are always connected to their smartphones. So I cannot talk to them only about TV and soap operas. I have to change my complete class to be more relevant. And at the end, I know we are all together in this challenge. We have to learn and to educate. But do we really trust our data resources? Do you trust them in Brazil? Do you trust them as a client? Do you trust them as an IAV?
I do. Again, depend on the data resource, depend on everything that we've been discussing. But yes, I do. Sometimes the way we read the data makes it wrong, because we don't know how to use the data. But there are pretty much good data sources, I'm pretty sure across the region, and also, of course, in Brazil. So trust is something that, yes, I do, but we need to, of course, define the best way to use the data, to interpret the data, because, again, sometimes a report with the same source comes different. So then we get the clients crazy, because they say, okay, when agents brought me the same data in a different way, because there is a human resource behind it, reading, interpreting it, and putting it in front of the industry. So yes, we should trust, but again, we should define standards. We should, and of course, if there is something wrong, we should raise our hands and blame them and take them off the market. That's simple.
Your final ideas, Anna?
In regards of trust, I think we have good data, we have bad data. I think we need to do our homework to know the sources that we can trust and the sources that we cannot trust. I wouldn't just trust because it's available. Do your homework, check, should you trust this or not? But when you're comfortable, then definitely use the data that you have available. I will say, though, that all this concept of data-driven marketing, it is tricky. I think we have lots of data. I think we can learn a lot. I think we can use data to inform our decisions. But at the end of the day, there is a piece of marketing that is art that we cannot lose sight of. Because if we turn marketing into a data science function, then we will lose that piece that truly connects with the consumer. We have to understand that still you connect with the consumer because of the way they feel, the way they behave, what they believe on. So data is transforming to intelligence, should be used to inform, but it's never going to replace that soft part that we have to also develop as marketeers. So my final thought is, one, remember what is it that you're looking for, define clearly your question. Two, identify the right sources of data, transform that data into intelligence, and then use that to inform, not to define, but to inform the decisions that you're going to make, which will be based on a balance between data and what you know from your consumers and what you know as a human being.
You know, you got me there, because that's why we are heart and science. We always have the heart as well.
Okay. In terms of IAB agenda, I understand that again, education is the major aspect that we have going on here in terms of how understanding data and how to get the best usage and and how to build the best value from this data. But a quick note that there are good players and bad players in any market. So of course that they can provide good data or bad data. Eventually, IAB understands that membership should be compliant with the best practices, and so they are good players. Mm-hmm. So you should find good players at the IAB as members of our committees and compliant with our best practice at all. And about education, just to give you an idea, in the last 12 months, over these months, IAB just reached over 36,000 attendees in its courses, events, webinars. So this is huge. That's in Brazil, of course, but this is huge. This is relevant exactly to bring light to the market in terms of how to deal with all those platforms and how to get the best from data and so forth.
So at the end, we have to get together. We have to learn. We have to educate our people, our agencies, our industry. We have to trust data providers. We have to better use the data. And we have to do our homework to identify the consumer insights that are relevant for our campaigns and for our efforts. So we have a great challenge as an industry. And that's why we are here today. So very happy to share this panel with you guys, Marcia, Anna, of course, the IIB.